the company is betting so confidently over this to rule the world of finance?
Our bet is that Interledger protocol is going to be the protocol of choice for interoperability. And the way this works, this is actually a derivative of blockchains. You wouldn't have had Interledger protocol unless there had been Bitcoin and other blockchains. And it uses cryptographic conditions so that one network can send value to another network without anybody in between. So
bring majority of the institution into the interoperability layer, which is the ILP, and pushing them towards using XRP needs a lot more things to happen. And that's where Xbrewing brings innovators. So as they fund innovators to bring in more disruption, these things happens.
Your app, how does it use the Interledger protocol and or XRP?
We built a Venmo clone transfer payment solution, which basically uses QR codes to send money using Interledger. As college students, we always use Venmo to settle our balances and payments. And we found that Venmo has a couple issues that we as blockchain engineers care about. The first thing is privacy. We've turned our data into social media, which we find a little bit concerning given that we don't have a stake in that data. And the second thing is that that money isn't really ours because it's on like Venmo servers. So we wanted to use Interledger as a way to solve those two problems.
We had two main components.
Here, the engineers are targeting another layer of payments and disruption of standard solutions. So that is kind of good for us.
Since everything's based on QR codes, any device that has a QR code scanner can use the app. So when you go and scan this QR code, there's a secret there, and the website will just parse that secret and handle it automatically.
It's the same.
When you're bringing in new type of app, the new innovations, it needs to be user-friendly so that it is easy to get into everyday life, right? So this kind of makes it easy for an everyday guy to use this app, to adopt this so easily. So we can see the future, how it will be rolling out.
To use any asset basically known to man. So any kind of ledger that's in a bank, once the settlement engine is written for that ledger, we can use it. So going forward, the next step would be to integrate XRP, which already exists. And once more settlement engines are created, we can start integrating those into the application.
Finally, now we understand towards which direction the world is moving. Many ask, where do you see value in XRP? If you don't understand that, my question is, if you can recognize value from these for the global bridge asset XRP, then it's cool. If you can't, then you shouldn't be an investor in this space. Now, when I say that, I'll say, in continuity, when they are talking about bringing in XRP as a settlement asset, they are also looking forward to bringing in all the different settlement mechanism and incorporate or interoperate between them. So now we know that, say for example, R3, it's a settlement mechanism which uses XRP. Now even if, say for example, R3 is moving out of XRP and it is using some other, say Zinfin or something, they can still interoperate, right? That is where ILP comes in. And even if they are using another asset, using ILP through XRP Ledger, it will touch XRP at one point. So to clarify, watch this next video here.
Mentioned XRP payments is an important one. I think the other that we're spending some time digging into is looking at the tokenization of real world assets.
New use cases for XRP. What does that do to global liquidity?
Yeah, it's incredibly accretive to global growth of liquidity, especially for XRP if it's being used in those flows. If you look at other markets.
So the Spring initiative is bringing in many new applications and innovations on top of the ILP and the XRP Ledger, which will become a common normal life thing in our everyday life. Now, I'm not talking about after 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. This will happen in next 5 years, that's for sure. So if an asset is becoming like such, what do you actually think its price will be? But when I say this, keep this in mind. When these innovations are happening and everyday man is adopting that in the next 5 years, the price will soon touch in the sense, say next 5 years, if these are being adopted, the price will actually rise from that duration to another 5 to 10 years. So that is kind of the maximum potential of XRP, which I'm talking about, considering the global liquidity market. So what do you think its price will do, considering it has a fixed supply and the demand is being increased by these kind of new innovations coming into XRP ledger? Now it can be via Interledger protocol, we don't know, but anyway they are coming in using the interoperability protocol. Now even the regulators are pushing for ISO 20022, which should be interoperable with everyone, every financial institution in that network. Now, understanding the value of this asset, then looking at the price for the asset and checking if that is a bargain. And if you can find that bargain, that makes you a wolf among the investors in this space, because this space is so immature and nascent. There are a lot of new guys who are investing first time in this asset. They don't know much about investing. And when you are coming into a new market, trying to learn about it, you should actually understand to at least to connect all the dots at least. Otherwise, try do maximum research and understand how it is actually turning out. Now, the scientific investor family actually knows this, right? We in this channel doesn't do that hyping thing. Instead, we try to find out as much as facts and the information as possible and connect them in between. Now, this information which I'm going to share with you now is going to connect what we stated now in this video before and previous videos. Say for example, this one is showing you bank-to-bank fiat relationship, right? Hearing all these and the recent announcement of Ripple, it can be confusing, but don't be, because if you are missing something like this, which they put out previously, then we can confuse ourselves. But looking at this time point, say around 2.03 to further, you can actually understand the liquidity provisioning. Now, if they are talking about a fiat to fiat, it's kind of high volume corridor, then they are still using their Nostro and the previous FX reserves. Now, if you move on to 237 in this video, in that area, you can see the next one. So that was the first one, which uses Nostro Vostro, and it was for the high volume corridors. Now if you're using a third party fiat liquidity, still you're in fiat, consider that. So you're rationalizing the Nostro relationship. You can actually choose which one you need for your ease. Now that is just to overcome the high cost of liquidity which you'll have to maintain if you have to put that dormant capital. Now this is connecting medium volume corridors. Now as you move forward in this video around say 3 minutes 29 seconds, 3 minutes 30 seconds, you reach this settlement through a digital asset, and here it's XRP. Now it offers the speed, scalability and everything, but you don't need that Nostro thing. So even in first two, you actually need that. Now in this one, it is ideal and for the exotic corridors. But what you have to keep in mind is, at first they were actually talking literally about the high volume, then the medium volume. So what will this be? This will for sure be the low volume, right? So here, what they are considering is the value. Now, for example, recently in the announcement, many got confused with saying, no one is going to use this, blah, 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 just because they announced that they are going to concentrate on low value, high frequency payment. This was there from a long time. If you missed that, that's not their problem, right? They talked about the third party institution providing liquidity and all. Now they are moving in to this one, and that is actually kind of for sure it is happening. Now here they actually showed you this exotic corridors, and we are seeing that those corridors are going live. Say for example, towards Mexico, towards Brazil. Now they are opening towards Thailand. So everything is kind of connecting itself. So without new Nostros, now if you have been following the scientific investor family from at least a couple of months or at least a month, you know that banks are reducing their corresponding banking relationships. Now as I showed you, if they don't have correspondent banking relationships, they can't manage those Nostro Vostro accounts because of the regulatory issues, cost, complexity and all those stuff. So this new kind of facility kind of fits in well for them. So for them, it's easy. It's not about us promoting our item. Now it's about bank coming in and asking, can we use this because it provides us better. If you have actually listened to David Joss talking about the interoperability and their actual perspective, then you wouldn't be having much of a doubt about what I'm saying now. Now, this is yes, not that long video, but still, if you listen carefully, you can actually get 10-15 seconds of 10 or 20 of them, which are really important for us to understand the actual value of this. Now, if you are an investor, what you need during these depressing times, considering the price, is you need to be motivated, understanding the real value of that asset. Otherwise, if there is a capitulation, you may be tempted to say, okay, I'm going to sell here and I'm going to buy low. Instead, you are going to do that without actually realizing the value. So let's go through this.
Interested in secure messaging and those types of applications. And I also had a kind of personal interest in the way money moves and finance. So it was always just an area of interest for me. So when I was looking for something interesting to do back in the mid-2011, I found StumbleUpon, which is like a website where you tell it what you're interested in, and it tells you what it thinks you should be interested in. And I guess I had the right combination, because I told it that I was interested in things like cryptography, kind of reversed as we've seen companies like Facebook and Twitter who've kind of undemocratized the movement of information. But this was a more ideal time.
Now, he just said about how he's in the space, how, he's so motivated to do things. And at the end here, that he also stated that internet actually let you to do anything to move information easily. But now Facebook and Twitter is kind of, coming in, stepping in, saying you can't say this, you can't say that, that's politically not correct. So you should be politically correct, blah, blah, blah. So that's there. At the same time, think where he's leading the conversation into, because previously he talked about information, internet moving information. Now he's talking about internet moving value.
It was this thing that, like, if everybody used Bitcoin, it would be great. But how do you... I used to joke that there's a couple of $1 trillion locked up in legacy fiat assets, right? Like dollars and euros. Like, you can't ignore those things. And I found a lot of like-minded people, and we built what's now Ripple. So technology would lead us. I think our very early vision, like almost from the very beginning, was this idea of a sort of cross-currency system, a system that wasn't based on everybody using the exact same currency as their everyday currency, but was more built on interoperability, this idea that if I had dollars and I wanted to pay someone euros, there should be some system that makes that easy. We kind of got to that position both because that was an interesting problem, and also when we first built what we call consensus, a sort of distributed agreement protocol, the way we solve the double spend problem, one of the first things that you do when you build something new is you try to figure out what properties it has and then what problems those properties are good for.
Now, these properties which was explained directly by David Joss of ILP and XRP, no other coin has this. We know that. If you cross-check with all the different assets, say go through the top 10, top 20, it's up to you, and you can see that no one can actually do what they are doing. Even if they can compete with them, they don't have the start which Ripple already has, like say 300 partnership announced and at least 300 to 400 not announced, and it is coming soon. Now it is with the previous announcement, it is now 350, so it's kind of growing. If you compare XDC, you can see that yeah, they are integrated with R3, but the number of partnership is so low. Anyway, what David he talked about here is about the interoperability and how you can actually connect the money movement in different ledgers, because if you are looking at internet of value, you should be connecting all the different ledgers, and that's where Interledger protocol comes in.
Make it useful for something. And one of the first things that we discovered is that distributed agreement protocols like consensus don't have some dictator that gets to choose what transactions go in every block like Bitcoin does. And what that's good for is a decentralized exchange. Because if you're going to have a decentralized exchange built on top of proof of work, the miner who mines each block can game the exchange by ordering the transactions inside that block. So if I place an offer to trade 2 assets and the market has moved against me, the miner can say, oh no, you can't cancel that offer. I'm actually going to take it and I'm going to resell that at a worse price. Like, he can game the system for each block that he mines. And decentralized exchanges built on top of platforms like Ethereum have had that kind of problem with front running. and exchange gaming. So when we realized that we had built a system that didn't have those particular vulnerabilities, we said, okay, what's the problem where those vulnerabilities are the most serious than if you have a system that doesn't have them? And that was cross-currency payment. And that's kind of evolved into the company the way it is today, with this sort of institutional payment side and this sort of decentralized digital asset side, and then connecting them together and taking institutional payments from financial institutions that are all regulated and they do all the KYC and everything. And then on the other side, you've got this digital asset that anybody can hold and trade. And if you can prove that you can connect those two things together to build a sort of global liquidity pool.
Now that was simple explanation about how this asset is dominating the existing all the thousands of assets and how they are solving the real problem. They actually stated directly that BTC is having this issue, that can be done, and Ether network was having this issue. So it's kind of clear. Now they are stating this in front of a lot of new innovators and investors. So now they are also aware of that. Now this happened back in 2018. From then, all the assets kind of depreciated in price after the huge rise up in 2017. So if you keep that in mind, when the price of these assets were coming down, innovation is increasing. The number of talented and individuals who are having higher potential is entering the space, doing their job, and now they're coming up with better things, as we just saw in this video. This is in November 2019, so that's near to that of 2020, right? So they're coming up with this. So in 2020, we can see something like that coming out. When these stuff actually rolls out, you really need this interoperability thing to kick in. Why? Because that's the only way you can actually connect into the new ISO. You should be interoperable based on the new standard. And how it affects us as XRP investors, the Interledger protocol actually needs to exchange value. And how will it exchange value? Using a bridge currency. And which is the bridge currency which will be connected to the ILP? At least it's for sure. The XRP is the native currency for XRP Ledger, and XRP Ledger is built on ILP. So that kind of clears the confusion if you have some.
Sure. So at first, there really wasn't enough liquidity available. The crypto exchanges weren't mature enough. There just wasn't realistic to settle through a digital asset directly. And so we focused on improving the payment system, because the payment systems that people have were just very slow and they were unidirectional. So like if you look at a payment system like SWIFT, you sort of push a message out into the world and you kind of hope it gets to where it's supposed to go, and then the money moves completely separately. So
now keep in mind, he actually talked about liquidity is needed, and liquidity should be increasing so that they can concentrate on increasing more, like expanding more, adopting more, right? So pushing towards more adoption. For them, they need liquidity so that they can go into a financial institution, say you can directly draw from this liquidity. You don't have to use that dormant capital, go through all the regulatory issues and reach this nostro vostro thing. But now, yes, I agree, there are regulatory issues when you are also using digital asset, but you can actually connect through an exchange. You don't have to hold the digital asset as of now, but once the regulatory clarity kicks in, then you don't actually need those exchanges to do this. Instead, you can directly do that. Or even if you can directly hold your fiat and XRP, then say you convert your fiat into XRP and send it via an exchange to the other end, which is the destination.
Digital currency side is more mature. Now that the liquidity is available, now that the values are high enough, you're starting to see us deliver on that sort of original vision of settling those payments with the digital asset, so that the payment can take place inside this sort of regulated space, but then there's a movement of XRP between sort of two regional liquidity hubs, and that's exactly what we're delivering today with XRapid. We're going to continue to see on the one side, there's like this payment network that institutions participate in. And the reason for that is because of regulatory compliance issues, and just because it's just, we can't force banks to open up their processes. And the beautiful part is that we don't have to. If we can make the liquidity, if we can make the place where the actual value, where the money moves is open, then it doesn't matter as much that the other system is closed. So, because if they didn't, their competitors would. And I think you're going to see the same thing start to happen. We're kind of early in that phase where like the large institutions don't feel competitive pressure to act in this space yet. And so they're just looking for advantages in customer acquisition or customer retention, or can they provide better service those kinds of things, they're not yet really feeling the competitive pressure that would make them innovate really new products yet. But that will...
Now step back and think. That happened back in 2018. At that time, the banks were not actually getting that pressure. But now it's not only the competition, like, the highly talented guys coming out with new products and apps. It's also the health crisis, the pandemic bringing in these issues, say reducing the liquidity, drying up the liquidity pots, and banks need more money, governments are printing more. So these issues are also now pushing them. So now they have to face this as well as the competitors. So that is why more and more financial institution is coming in, stepping in, taking more positive attitude towards digital assets. Even all the international or supranational organizations are coming out stating you can use digital asset, you can use utility tokens. Now they name it differently in different countries. In one country it may be calling it utility token, the other will be calling it digital asset, but I think they are looking at the use case. So if you remember what Brad Garlinghouse stated previously, you will definitely understand this. Use case will derive the value and price of an asset in the long run. So if you are an investor, you should be interested and invested in that. Personally, I do that.
What do you think it's going to take to get there? And what do you think is going to need to happen other than what you already mentioned?
I think it takes an enormous number of people. It takes a lot of interest in the space. It takes talented people being attracted into the space. One of the fantastic things that I've seen recently is this trend of really talented people and people who have ideas and inspiration moving into the space. You can sort of look at, like, at one time, the cool people, the people who knew what they were doing, the people who were real innovators were working at Apple or Microsoft, and then they kind of moved into Facebook, and then they kind of moved into Uber. There was like this idea that this was the area where the innovation was happening, where the money was flowing, and I think you're starting to see that become cryptocurrency.
And with that statement being made, I will argue that not only cryptocurrency, but precisely XRP ecosystem, because as we see Xpring bringing in more talents, at the same time we are also seeing established, reputed individuals, talented guys coming in, joining Ripple. Now, when we look back at Ripple, say 2 years back, the number of individuals in that company and currently what they have as asset, human workforce as asset, is huge, because they are having that potential. Now, where the money moves in, the potential is moving in. So if you are an investor, you should be looking at how the market is changing and where the money is flowing, because the cash flow, the direction of cash flow will decide the profit. If the money is flowing out of that particular asset or the ecosystem, it's going to dry up, whereas this, the value is being increased through that.
Is it's an interoperability solution. There's kind of an irony here that a lot of us came into this space because we didn't like siloed liquidity. It's like if you have PayPal and I have American Express, or you have this mobile system in Kenya, nothing connected to itself. And the irony is that we rebuilt that same problem. We have something like 1,500 tokens, and you can't, they don't interoperate. So we reinvented the very same problem that we're trying to solve. Interledger is a light interoperability protocol that coordinates transactions between ledgers, and it doesn't care what those ledgers are. They can be blockchains, they can be traditional banking ledgers, anything that can track value. Now, that's an idea for sort of developing a protocol like TCP/IP. It's not a business per se, because there's no token, there's no revenue model. Coil is pursuing a particular business on top of that technology, which is paying for content.
So he just explained why this will be huge, because we know that 1,500, 2,500, 4,000, 5,000 tokens are there, but that is not actually kind of solving what problems are existing there. Because if you're coming out with a technology, you're kind of saying, this is the problem and I'm going to solve that problem with this technology. It's not like I have a technology, do you have a problem? That doesn't work in that way, right? So for Ripple, it is working because they already understood that this is the pain point. That is where the fire is burning in the back. So they are kind of now taking out that bucket of water, pouring it in, and it looks like it is working because more financial institutions or regulated institutions are coming in and using this. So now he actually stated another example from ILP and XRP usage, which is Coil. At the same time, we actually went through another push from Spring, right? So we also know that the Zoom app. So a lot of new things are coming in. If you look back, You can also see the giants stepping in using the Interledger protocol, which is polysign, right? So that is an institutional solution. So everything is kind of lining up. But when we say that, you can actually ask, you are saying this from years, but do understand this is a new technology and disrupting bankers, central bankers. You know, they are kind of hard to disrupt because they are the value. Now they own the value. We can say that they are the custodians of value. So they will play all the dirty politics so that they can still stay relevant. So disrupting them, even like what Ripple does, is so impressive because they are already proving that they're doing it. And if you stay relevant, you can compete, you can try to compete, but in next couple of years we are gonna kick you out. That is for sure. That is why even Swift is trying to come up with something new. Even after delaying ISO 20022, they are looking at something, they are working on something. But based on what Ripple has now and the support from the supranational institutions, I don't think, you know, Swift can even compete with them, because even if they come up with something, it's still an American based system. You know, that's nothing bad with that. But whenever the president comes out and says, no, we are going to sanction you, that doesn't work. Other countries are not going to accept that. So coming into an open source technology to use your own currency, say if India is using something to send to Russia, they can now use Indian rupees and send it to the Russian. So it's cool for them, right? If, you know, China is doing the same, they can do that. If US is doing, they can do that. So the reserve status is kind of endangered, but still the bridge asset is solving that issue. Now that is kind of the value prospect of XRP via interoperability layer, which is ILP. Now I'm not playing this video because Shiraz has actually given the summary so clearly. I actually played it through. I understood that whatever he stated is accurate, and that's what we actually want to know from that video. Like Ripple will enable transaction and interoperability between system. Whatever David explained here is kind of connecting it with this, right? So the global transactions will be operating on the ILP or through the ILP, touching or kissing the XRP for sure. So as a bridge currency, if you can't see the value of this particular asset, please drop it and leave. If you see the value, you should actually take some concrete and put on your feet. You'll stay strong here until this moves. It may take time, but if you actually understand the value of this asset, you will be patient enough because you know the destination. Now, if you know the destination, you just have to wait. No matter what the path is, you have to reach that destination. Now guys, if you like the content, do support the channel, hit that like button, and I request, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do support the channel, hit that subscribe button too.